Thanks for watching. This is the man with the golden voice, the lady's choice, and of course, smooth as a Rolls Royce, saying, never make love by the garden gate, though love is blind, the neighbor's aim.
That she finally just had enough. And, I guess, you don't want to be remembered for that. But like, and then another thing you pointed out, do I believe him? Do I believe that he did it? It was at first, I'm not going to lie. I was like, I don't know. These people, they want money, whatever. But the one thing that made me turn my mind around and I was like, okay, this is too much, was when the allegations first came out. I'll never forget it. And he was on there and he said, listen, I would never do anything like this.
You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things that you have to, when you're looking at stuff, it's like there was too much smoke for it not to be unbelievable, for it to be unbelievable. Am I making sense?
Exactly. I think that video did him in, though. I mean, because after that, he went from I would never do this, these, people money and da 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 to when that came out, then he changed his tune. He was like, look, I was in a dark place, I was going through some stuff. Nah, you should have said that in the beginning. Just be
But
real.
he thought he could weasel his way out of it, and that's a whole nother story. Miss Dream, what's going on? Welcome back to the show.
Hello. Sorry.
So with the situation with what's going on and people in difficult relationships, Miss Summer and I were talking about, you know, did he do it? And we both came to the conclusion, yeah. But people in difficult situations, what do you think keeps them there in those type of situations?
I think probably lack of self-esteem. They don't think they're worthy enough, so they stay where when they should leave. I mean, there's a variety of things, but for that particular situation, it's not like she had really any real ties except for maybe probably the money, the lifestyle. But it's not like they had children together, or any of those things. So it's almost like you're there because your lack of self-love and your lack of realizing you're worth more than being sexually abused and taken advantage of. So I think that's the reason why a lot of women stay until finally, because that's why the video was it for me. She was literally running. That's why I don't even understand why people question her claim of abuse. That video, you're running with your shoes off to a hotel elevator, and the way he beat her, like that was like you've done this before. That wasn't a first time beat down. So whatever they say and whatever the reason is, she was clearly fearful for her life. And at some point, it was just you were playing a role, so you were afraid and fearful and totally. You were always being abused, but the abuse just got so bad you couldn't get away, and that video was proof of that.
Yeah, but that's like I said, it you get into situations to where you are not, you know, you're not looking at what's going on, but what you're getting out of it. Like you said, there was a lot. There wasn't kids, but there was fame and money, and he had the power. Because most of those situations, it's about power and control. If you got power and you can control folks, then a lot of times it's a little harder for them to leave. But in her situation, um, in her situation, we have to look. I look at it from a different viewpoint. Is that yeah, she should you know she was sort of a victim, but then how much is it was it victimhood? And we had to it's tough not to look at it from different angles. It's not it what the whole situation is not it's not as simple as we would wanted it to be. Go ahead, Miss Summer.
And another thing, this rabbit hole runs real, real deep because you have in the trial, you have where you got to remember she was with him for years. So she's seen a lot of behind the scenes stuff. She has seen him uh, use his power to manipulate people. She has seen him take control over people, looking at somebody and saying, you know what, I'm going to dominate them, and watching what he does. So there's a certain fearfulness with that she's seen over the years. So that could have been very crippling too for her to feel like she could walk away if she's seen him demonstrate different types of domination. And so that could be one thing. And then the other thing too is he involved her parents, her mom in some stuff. So he was reaching, he did some shady stuff to her family. So,
Of course.
and then you got to think about the last aspect and piece to the puzzle of this. He threatened to release her tape to people. So he was all in her head. It is almost crippling. She had to almost had no choice but to be a sex slave because he was cornering her with all of this stuff to where she was afraid to make a move. So it may have took her years to develop strength. And with that, age and growth and all of that to be able to break away. But he was all in her head. He got to her so young, I believe, and demonstrated so much stuff to her that she felt like she couldn't move away.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting way to look at it. Miss Kim D, she wanted to say something. What's going on, Miss Kim?
Hey, I just want us to acknowledge also Cassie called the police. And when she called the police laughed at her and hung up in her face. Her friends also called the police, and the police did nothing. So I can tell you from personal experience, when you call the police and the police do nothing, and you're dealing with someone with power, and the police are doing nothing to that person, it becomes a situation where you are silenced. Because if you call the people who are supposed to protect you and then they do nothing, what are you supposed to do? He beat that girl down the hall, like the previous lady just said, and the tape went away and nothing was done to him. How many times did he do that, and how many times did that happen?
Oh, and that's why I was saying that, you know, he's legally he's innocent until proven guilty. All this stuff is alleged, even though we saw the tape. That
Oh yeah. But I think because I've been seeing online, where people have been saying, I'm not necessarily saying anybody here, but people are repeatedly saying like about the money and the power, and she might have stayed because she enjoyed the lifestyle and different things like that. I mean, I'm sure there are some perks to dating Diddy. I'm not saying that. She was getting her apartment and her car and her clothes and all of those things were free, but also they came with a very hefty price.
yeah,
And
I was
I
about to
also had
say.
I also had to point out to a friend of mine the other day that she was dating Diddy, and Cassie is a very, very beautiful girl. When she left Diddy, could have been and there probably were a line of rappers that would have dated her, treated her halfway decent. She could have had somewhat of the same lifestyle, and they would have done it just to be able to say they had Diddy girl on their arm.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother psychology that I do not want to go down this road.
I get you. I get you, but what I'm saying is that if it was a situation where it was the money and the power, she would have continued to go after that.
Oh no,
So at the end of the
I agree.
day, so I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, if anything, and the lady before us, she said she was 19. I also have to point out that neurologically, your frontal lobe isn't even formed until you're 25. He knew what he was doing, and he's a monster. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
oh no, there's no doubt, there's no doubt that he's a reprehensible human being, and if found guilty, should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Make no mistake about that. My opinion on that. I, what